I was standing in my kitchen the other morning, just as the sun was starting to peek over the McDowell Mountains here in Scottsdale, and I realized I was doing that thing again. You know the one. I was holding the bottle of orange juice at arm's length, squinting my eyes into tiny slits, trying to figure out if the expiration date said the 8th or the 18th. It's a frustrating thing, isn't it? You spend your whole life relying on your eyes to see the road, to read the fine print on a contract, to look into the faces of the people you love, and then one day it feels like someone smeared a little bit of grease across the lens of your life. After 60, these small things are the ones that start to weigh on you the most. We're told it's just part of getting older, like a creak in the floorboards of an old house or a bit of rust on the bumper of a truck that's seen too many winters in Ohio. But I've learned that the body doesn't ask twice in the same way, and if you don't listen to those early whispers, they turn into a roar that you can't ignore. I remember my father back in Columbus. He worked at the manufacturing plant for decades, eyes always fixed on the machinery, making sure every gear and pulley was aligned just right. Toward the end of his life, he started fumbling with his tools. He'd reach for a wrench and miss it by an inch. He never complained, that wasn't his way. But I saw the look in his eyes when he couldn't see the television clearly anymore. He just accepted it as the price of a long life. I refuse to do that. I'm 81 years old now, and I've spent the better part of my career in community health education, helping folks understand that their health isn't just something that happens to them, it's something they can influence. My daughter Laura, who's been a registered nurse over in Phoenix for a long time, called me a few months back. She was telling me about the rise in vision loss she sees in the clinic, and it got me thinking. Why is it that we wake up with those dry, scratchy eyes? Or why the headlights on the 101 freeway seem to have those long, blinding starbursts around them now? It turns out the real battle for your eyesight isn't happening while you're squinting at a menu in a dimly lit restaurant. It's happening while you're asleep. Think of your eyes like a high-performance engine. During the day, that engine is running hot, taking in all that light, processing every image, and dealing with the glare of the Arizona sun. At night, that engine needs to cool down and undergo maintenance. But for many of us, the maintenance crew isn't showing up. The retina, that light-sensitive tissue at the back of your eye, needs a steady supply of oxygen and nutrients to repair the damage from the day. If it doesn't get what it needs while you're in deep sleep, those delicate photoreceptor cells start to break down slowly and silently. It's like a foundation of a house that's slowly being undermined by a slow leak in the plumbing. You don't notice the crack until the door won't close anymore. I started talking to Daniel, my son, who's a physical therapist up in Denver, about circulation and how the body repairs itself. He reminded me that after 70, our blood flow isn't always as efficient as it used to be. The tiny capillaries in the eyes are some of the smallest in the body. If they're not delivering the goods at night, your vision is going to suffer. So I started looking into what I could do, not with expensive drops that just mask the dryness, and not by just getting a stronger pair of glasses every 2 years. I wanted to know if there was something I could put in my body before I put my head on the pillow that would help my eyes do their job. And that's when I discovered that there are specific fruits that act like a specialized toolkit for your eyes. The first thing I started keeping in the bowl on my counter was the kiwi. Now I know what you're thinking. It's a strange-looking little thing, fuzzy on the outside like a tennis ball, but inside it's packed with something called lutein and zeaxanthin. Laura explained it to me like this. Those two compounds are like natural sunglasses that live inside your retina. They filter out the harmful blue light from our phones and televisions. When I started eating a couple of those golden kiwis, the yellow ones, not the green ones, about an hour before bed, I noticed a difference within a few weeks. I wasn't waking up with that sand in the eyes feeling quite as much. The golden ones are a bit easier on my stomach late at night, and they've got more of that lutein I was looking for. And here's a tip I learned from one of the health journals I subscribe to. Don't scoop it out so clean that you leave that thin layer right under the skin. There's an antioxidant in there called caffeic acid that helps with the repair process. I just use a spoon and make sure I get as close to the skin as I can. Then there's the watermelon. I always associated watermelon with those 4th of July picnics back in Ohio, where the kids would run around with juice dripping down their chins. But out here in the heat of Scottsdale, hydration is everything. Your eyes are mostly water, and if you're dehydrated at night, your vision is going to be blurry when you wake up. Watermelon is full of lycopene. I used to think lycopene was just for the prostate, which is important for us men, of course, but it's also a powerful shield for the eyes against oxidative stress. It helps keep the blood flowing to the retina. I started having a cup or two of chilled watermelon about half an hour before bed. I make sure not to add any salt, even though my father used to swear by it, because salt can raise the pressure in your eyes, and that's the last thing we need. And I even started blending a bit of that white rind into a smoothie. It has citrulline in it, which helps the blood vessels stay flexible. It's like making sure the pipes in your house aren't getting clogged up with mineral deposits. I remember one afternoon I was sitting in the shade of my porch, and I was reading about black currants. Most of the grocery stores around here don't even carry them fresh, but Laura told me they were a secret weapon for night vision. They have these deep purple pigments called anthocyanins. When we're driving at night and a car comes toward us with those bright LED lights, our eyes have to adjust back to the darkness. That's called dark adaptation. As we get older, that process slows down. It's why driving at night becomes so stressful. Those black currants help the eye regenerate a pigment called rhodopsin, which is what actually lets you see in the dark. Since I couldn't find the berries themselves, I started taking a little bit of the extract in the evening with a few walnuts. The fat in the walnuts helps the body absorb the nutrients. It made me feel a lot more confident behind the wheel when I'm coming home from dinner with friends after the sun goes down. Now, everyone knows about blueberries, but I learned something that really surprised me. I used to buy those big, shiny blueberries in the plastic clamshells at the supermarket. But those aren't the ones that really do the heavy lifting for your eyes. You want the wild blueberries, the tiny ones you usually find in the frozen section. They have twice the antioxidant power. They go after the damage in the cells that let you focus and see fine details. I started eating about a third of a cup of those about 45 minutes before I turn in. I'd just let them thaw out on the counter while I was tidying up the kitchen. But here's the mistake I was making. I used to put them in a bowl with a little bit of yogurt. It turns out the protein in dairy binds to those antioxidants and prevents your eyes from ever seeing them. It's like trying to send a letter but forgetting to put a stamp on it. It's just not going to get where it needs to go. Now I eat them plain, and I notice that the text on my tablet doesn't seem to swim around quite as much in the evenings. Every now and then, I like to try something a bit different, something that takes me out of my usual routine. I saw a dragon fruit in the store. It looks like something out of a science fiction movie, all bright pink and scaly. But the ones with the deep red flesh inside are the ones that matter. My daughter explained that these fruits help with something called retinal hypoxia. That's just a fancy way of saying your eyes aren't getting enough oxygen while you sleep. When your eyes are starved for oxygen, you wake up feeling like you haven't slept at all. Dragon fruit has these rare antioxidants called betalains that help widen those tiny blood vessels in the eye. I started eating half of one before bed, and I made sure to chew those little black seeds. Most people just swallow them, but the seeds have omega-3s that are essential for the nerves in your eyes. It's the difference between having a dim light bulb in a room and finally putting in a fresh, bright one. I think back to Margaret and how she used to love the old stories of traditional medicine. She would have been fascinated by goji berries. They've been used for thousands of years in the East, and for good reason. They are one of the richest sources of zeaxanthin you can find. If you're worried about the center of your vision getting blurry, what the doctors call macular degeneration, these little dried berries are like a shield. They protect the macula, which is the part of the eye that lets you recognize the faces of your grandchildren or read the labels on your medicine bottles. I started soaking a couple of tablespoons of them in warm water for 10 minutes before I eat them. It makes them easier to digest, and after 80 you have to think about your digestion as much as your vision. I sometimes have a small square of very dark chocolate with them. It's a little treat for myself, but the flavonoids in the cocoa actually help the body use the zeaxanthin more effectively. It's a win-win in my book. But if you ask me which one fruit has made the biggest difference, the one I make sure is always in my kitchen, it's the papaya. Back in Ohio, we didn't see much papaya, but here in Arizona, it's everywhere. Most people don't realize that one of the biggest enemies of our eyesight as we age is something called glycation. It's when the sugar in our blood starts to gum up the proteins in our eyes, making the lenses cloudy. That's how cataracts start. It's like putting a layer of sticky syrup over a clean window. Papaya has an enzyme called papain that helps break down those sticky compounds. It's also loaded with vitamins A, C, and E. I eat a cup of ripe papaya about an hour before I go to sleep. I keep it at room temperature on the counter because the cold from the fridge can kill those enzymes. I squeeze a little bit of fresh lime juice over it too. Not just because it tastes like a vacation, but because the vitamin C in the lime helps my body absorb the vitamin A. It's a simple habit, but it's one that makes me feel like I'm doing something real to keep those clouds from forming in my vision. I've learned over the years that it's not just about what you do, it's how you do it. Discipline and routine are what keep a man going after 80. If I just threw all these fruits into a blender with a bunch of milk and ice, I'd be wasting my time. There are rules to this, just like there were rules in the manufacturing plant. You have to respect the process. I make sure to keep my fruit snacks away from dairy. I always try to have a little bit of healthy fat, like those walnuts or a slice of avocado, to help the nutrients move through my system. I don't scrub the berries until the skin is broken. I just give them a gentle rinse, and I always make sure the fruit isn't ice cold. My body has to work hard enough as it is. I don't need to shock my system with a bunch of cold food right before I'm trying to rest. I sit out here on my porch, and I think about how much my life has changed since I turned 78 and started this channel. I started it because I saw so many people my age just giving up. They'd say, "Well, Harold, I can't see the paper anymore. I guess I'm just getting old." And it would break my heart, because independence is something you have to protect with everything you've got. If you can't see the road, you can't drive to see your friends. If you can't read a recipe, you can't cook for yourself. These small habits, eating a piece of papaya or a couple of kiwis before bed, they aren't just about vitamins. They're about staying in the game. They're about being able to look at my 4 grandkids and see the color of their eyes and the smiles on their faces without having to hunt for a pair of glasses first. Maybe you're sitting there right now, looking at this screen and wondering if it's too late for you. Maybe your vision is already quite blurry, or you've been told you have the start of cataracts. I want you to listen to me. It is never too late to start giving your body the tools it needs to repair itself. The body is a remarkable thing, even at 81. It wants to heal. It wants to see clearly. You just have to meet it halfway. You don't have to change everything overnight. Just start with one thing. Maybe tomorrow you pick up some papaya or some wild blueberries. You try it for a week and see how you feel when you wake up in the morning. I remember a conversation I had with a neighbor, a man named George. He was about my age and was getting ready to stop driving because the glare at night was just too much for him. He felt like his world was shrinking. I told him about the black currants and the kiwis. He was skeptical. George is a man who likes his steak and potatoes, but he gave it a try because he was desperate. A month later, I saw him at the mailbox, and he had this look on his face, a kind of quiet relief. He told me he'd driven home from his son's house the night before, and he hadn't felt that old familiar panic. He could see the edges of the road again. That's what this is all about. It's not about living forever, it's about living well while we're here. It's getting a bit warmer now, and the sun is higher in the sky. I can feel the heat starting to radiate off the stones in the garden. I'm going to go inside in a minute and check on those papayas I have ripening on the counter. But before I do, I want you to think about what it would mean to you if your vision got just a little bit sharper. What's the first thing you'd want to see clearly? For me, it was being able to look at the old photos of Margaret without having to squint. It was like having her back in the room with me for a second. That's worth more than any pill or any expensive treatment in the world. You have to be your own advocate when it comes to your health. Don't just wait for a doctor to give you a prescription. Ask the questions. Do the research. Talk to your kids if they're in the medical field like mine are. There is so much power in these small, everyday choices. The independence you're holding on to is precious, and it's built on the foundation of these little habits. The way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you look at the world, it all matters. I'm going to head inside now. The desert has a way of telling you when it's time to seek some shade. But I want you to know that you aren't alone in this. We're all navigating this together, trying to keep our lights bright as the evening comes on. You still have time to make a difference in how you see the world. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I'd love to hear what's on your mind. If you could see one thing perfectly clearly tomorrow morning, what would it be? I spend my evenings reading through what you all have to say, and it keeps me going. Knowing that we're building this community of folks who refuse to just fade away. If this talk helped you, maybe share it with someone you know who's struggling with their eyes. You never know who might need to hear that there's still hope. Take care of yourselves. Watch those small things because they're the ones that lead to the big changes. Stay curious. Keep advocating for your own health, and don't let that spark go out. I'll be here, sitting on my porch, thinking about the next thing we can talk about. I'll see you soon.